Always Sunny in Sayreville League, and I've got a temporary fix for the whole camera situation, so we're going to roll with it. This should go pretty smoothly. Injuries this week. Brandon Cooks and Cooper Kupp both got knocked out of their game with concussions. Cooks at the beginning, Kupp at the end. But because the Rams can't lose, they can't miss, they can't do anything wrong, both of them are trending towards playing just one short week later. One regular-sized week later. You can't say short week in football. Arrow pointing up on both of those guys. Matt Breida, questionable. He got super banged up. No, that's not true. He got banged up. Jay Ajayi got super banged up. ACL, broken back, the whole nine. But he's like, yeah, put me in, coach. I can tote the rock. It's cool. But they put him on IR. He's done for the year. And I'm not discussing anything called Rhett Ellison on this show ever. We got a lot to discuss. We got a lot to get to this week. So we're going to start with the beatdown of the year. The Rusty Strombone beat the shit out of the Schwartz this week, 190.62 to 93.52. This 97.1 point margin of victory was the fifth biggest win of all time. The Rusty Strombone had three players score over 30 points. That's Drew Brees, Saquon Barkley, who in this fantasy football league is absolutely justifying his high draft position, and the Cincinnati defense. Over 30 points. The Rusty Strombone is on a nice little run of choosing streaming defenses. The wide receivers were a little bit of a letdown, but that did not go unnoticed by Anthony. This was the third highest score of the year and by far the worst beating of the year. Rusty Strombone is a team on the rise, and for that, the Rusty Strombone is this week's hero. Now, normally I don't like to repeat heroes or goats in back-to-back weeks, and if I had to do it all over again, I would go back in time and change last week's goat, because this week, Johnny reset the bar. Now, it's a strong statement to say that an Ortiz-managed team hit an all-time low, but a lot of boxes got checked this week, ladies and gentlemen. Lowest score of the week, check. Lowest score of the year, check. 2-game losing streak, check. Start a guy who scores 0, check. Start a negative scorer, check. Only 2 players in double digits, check. A high score of 15.4, check. Lose to a team who started an inactive player, check. Lose to a winless team, check. Lose to a last place team, check. Score your lowest point total of all time. Check. Now, before this game, this is beautiful symmetry. Before this game, the bootleg crab leg, pretty boy managed team, the lowest score they had ever scored in a game was 79.5 points, coming off a bye in the second round of the playoffs in 2016. He lost to the Moth, ironically. This time, losing to the Moth, scoring his lowest score of all time. And for that, the bootleg crab leg is this week's GOAT. Now, it does bear mentioning at this point, before we go any further, that the commissioner's office has been in contact with the GM and owner of the Moth. He wanted to extend his apology to the entire league for his delinquents. He has had some real life stuff going on, and every one of us understands that this, at the end of the day, is a fantasy football league, and real life is more important. and the Moth just wants to say that he's still in it to win it, and that he will be back to his old competitive self. Unfortunately, ASAP. So he did reach out. Classy move, and I just wanted to extend that to the rest of the league. The Moth is back. So, I don't know if that's good news or bad news, but that's news. So there you go. Okay, so last week I highlighted the trades that had gone down over the first third of the season. Well, something in that report must have triggered you snowflakes, because on 10-10, we had a trade bonanza, the likes of which this league has never seen. So before we break down the craziest day in trade history, it's week 5, and that means it's time for another edition of Odd Sundays. So let's take a run down to Atlantic City for a point of view that's just a tad askew.
What's up, Sunny Villains? I saw a bunch of trades went down where both teams received players. That's pretty cool. So many players were changing addresses, I thought it was an episode of House Hunters. Sadly, my winning streak has ended, and I am now 4-1, much like the Cincinnati Bengals. USA Today recently reported that in 2006, there were 71 arrests in the NFL, by far the most of any year, 10 of which were owned by the Cincinnati Bengals, many of which were for drunk driving. So we'll see how that works out this Sunday against the Steel Reserve. Speaking of drunk driving, in a move that was clearly spearheaded by John Riggins, Uber and Lyft had teamed up with the NFL to drive drunken players home. If only they could do it for the fans. I haven't been to an NFL game since 1996, and I regret nothing. So if you live in Washington, D.C., you could wind up driving Josh Norman around, which could be pretty cool. You get to hear about all the debauchery going on in Washington. I don't know that a 48-19 score is debauchery. I've participated in some, and it never felt like that. It's not a very good year for the Grudens. Not a very good year to have Gruden as your last name. The Jay Gruden situation in Washington wouldn't be so bad, of course, if Sean McVay wasn't out in Los Angeles crushing it and making John Gruden in Oakland look like an idiot. McVay, really, really good. I don't even mind that Seahawks loss, because that was pretty badass. So, from the balcony, it's Colin. Goodbye.
Thanks, Colin. We'll see you in 2 weeks. What if I told you that on one nondescript day in October, half the damn league would catch trade fever and 17 players would be traded between 6 teams in 6 deals? Now, I would be a bad reporter if I didn't point out that the apparent tipping point of this avalanche was this week's GOAT. In the immediate aftermath of a horrendous bootleg crab leg loss, what do? We offered John a trade. On Tuesday, Rusty Strombone and Sweep the Leg offered mega 3-for-1 deals to a reeling bootleg crab leg. By Wednesday morning, something was in the air. Toddler Fight Club and Beer Muscles were busy hashing out a deal that would send Demarius Thomas to Beer Muscles for Tyler Boyd and Carlos Hyde. Cha-ching. Beer Muscles also made a deal with Sweep the Leg that sent LaShawn McCoy to Sweep the Leg for Royce Freeman and Aaron Jones. At the same time, a very sloppy and impatient Rusty Strombone was double dealing with Team Blumpkin, an unknowing Team Blumpkin, an innocent babe in the woods Team Blumpkin. After not getting a prompt response from Pretty Boy, Anthony just couldn't wait. Literally, as they reached an agreement, John woke up. Team Blumpkin accepted Rusty Strombone's trade offer at 12:51 p.m. and Bootleg Crab Leg accepted Rusty Strombone's trade offer at 12:52 p.m. The only problem is Chris Carson was a component in both trades. So a minute and 17 seconds apart, both trades were accepted. Now this caused a bit of a stir in the league, and the commissioner had to step in. The second deal, time-wise, was revoked. First come, first serve. Thought it was fair. Now, Rusty Strombone and Bootleg Crableg were very upset that they missed their window, a la the Browns and AJ McCarron. And I don't honestly even want to think about the tap dancing or whatever else Rusty Strombone had to do with Mike Dahl to convince him to do the trade back. But I'm assuming Alf Morris had something to do with that, and the Matt Breida injury, of course. But after a couple of clerical transactions, we had 6 trades, 1 day, 17 players, 6 teams. 10-10-18. The day the whole league traded. And the craziest part, the trade deadline's still over a month away. Alright guys, key matchups. The first matchup we have to take a look at is a number 2's division battle between 4-1 Rutherford B. Hazy and 3-2 Rusty Strombone. Now the Rutherford B. Hazy's lead in the division is dwindling as he tries to get used to being the hunted as opposed to not even being invited on the hunt. And the Rusty Strombone is trying to win for a share of the division lead. The other key matchup is a Porter division battle between 3-2 Toddler Fight Club and 3-2 Bootleg Crableg. Now, the Toddler Fight Club is the highest scoring team in the league, coming off of their lowest scoring game of the year. And the Bootleg Crableg certainly has the worst scoring trend in the league, but he has a remade roster, so we'll try to see if he can stop the bleeding. So that's it, guys. Week 5 update over. Remember to set your lineups. Remember that you never know unless you ask. And I will see you next week where it's always sunny.